All right, I'm going to have to ask you a question. Do you want to play a deck that is borderline unfair? I mean, like, nightmarish amounts of unfair. This particular deck is only one commander choice away from being an absolute busted monster, and the only reason I've picked the one that I have is, one, it's a newer commander, and two, I think it'll be a lot more fun than the other option. Today we gotta talk about this monstrosity. Earlier, Imperial Advisor. She is a 3-mana commander that is going to absolutely bury your opponents in value and enchantments. You can do all kinds of nasty things with basically any of the commanders that say you draw a card whenever you do something. So let's get into why this commander is particularly busted. The core strategy of the Pearlier deck we're going to be working with today is very simple. Dump a ton of enchantments on the board, do it for borderline free, draw lots of cards, and hit our opponents with our big fox wieners. To do this, we are going to be engaging in dumping a ton of enchantments on the board and making sure that Pearlier can hit for maximum damage in a Voltron-style deck. So, let's get into the different kinds of enchantments we are going to be running and how we are going to be operating. Starting off with the auras for big power. These are the auras that are going to care about our board state, our hand state. Basically, if any one of these touches our commander, they are instantly within almost lethal territory for anyone. Let's go ahead and take a look at each of these in turn. Eidolon of Countless Battles. This can bestow itself onto a creature to become an enchantment. It'll give it 1/1 for every creature we control and 1/1 for every aura we control. Our commander being on the board gives us one of those creatures, and of course we already have an aura in the case of Eidolon itself. So for 4 mana, we're getting 2/2, not the greatest rate of return, but it will stack on top of all of our other abilities like All That Glitters, which gives us 1/1 for every enchantment or artifact we control, Ethereal Armor, which gives us 1/1 for every enchantment we control and gives us access to First Strike, Battle Mastery, which gives our commander double strike. So with this on the board and any one of these, our commander will most likely just be lethal. Imperial Armor, which gives our creature XX, where X is the number of cards in our hand. Remember, our commander draws us cards when we attach auras to modified creatures. This means that Imperial Armor is almost always going to be giving our commander plus 7/7, unless we've played a bunch of auras that turn, in which case it may be even higher. Mantle of the Ancients will give a creature 1/1 for every aura or equipment attached to it, while also allowing us to return all the auras and equipments from our graveyard onto that creature. If Mantle of the Ancients touches Pearlier, it's basically game over unless somebody's hit us with a Bajukabog. And remember, our commander gives our enchantment spells affinity for auras. This means that you're not paying 3 mana for Imperial Armor, 5 mana for Mantle of the Ancients, 3 mana for Battle Mastery. You're paying 1 mana for All That Glitters, 1 mana for Battle Mastery, 2 mana for Imperial Armor, 2 mana for Mantle of the Ancients. If you are set up with even a couple of enchantments, you will almost always be able to drop these on the board for basically nothing. And we actually can make it almost nothing. We'll talk about that here in a second. But there's one more aura I want to talk about, and that is Sage's Reverie, which gives 1/1 for every aura on the creature, while also giving that creature the ability to draw a card for every aura that's currently attached to it once, as soon as the Sage's Reverie drops on the board. This can go ahead and be a huge haymaker for you. If Sage's Reverie drops on a creature while you've got Imperial Armor, you'll draw a card for the Sage's Reverie, and then draw a card for every single enchantment that is on the creature. This will make our commander lethal. It will be very scary. But we can't just rely on big haymaker stuff. We also have to have little bits of power as well, because we have affinity for auras. We need to make sure that our commander always has a steady supply of them. So we've got a few auras that give smaller amounts of power that will still help in the long run. 7 of them, in fact, beginning with Spirit Link. This says when the creature does damage, we gain that much life. Note, this Spirit Link card has not had a Gatherer update, which means this gain life ability is a fully separate trigger to what you would get with Lifelink. So our commander effectively gets double Lifelink, or with Double Strike it'll have quadruple Lifelink, while Spirit Link is on the board. Marked by Honor also gives our commander 2/2 and Vigilance, and don't let the 4 mana cost surprise you. It's only going to cost 1 because of our affinity effect. Conviction gives a creature 1/3 and the ability to pay 1 to return it to our hand in a pinch. Due Diligence is a 3 mana 1, but again, that's only 1 mana because of our commander. When it enters the battlefield, target creature you control other than the enchanted creature gets 2/2 and gains Vigilance until end of turn, but it also gives the creature 2/2 and Vigilance. So if we were a go wide style deck, this would give us a super cool effect on top of that. Otherwise, for us, it's just 1 mana for 2/2 Vigilance. Indomitable Will gives a creature 1/2 at flash speed, so we can use this at the end of somebody's turn if we desperately need to. Abzan Runemark gives a creature 2/2 and Vigilance as long as we have a black or green permanent. We are mono white, so we're not really going to be taking advantage of that. And then we have Candlelight Vigil, which will give our commander 3/2 and, of course, Vigilance, because we want it up to block, because we want that lifelink to be what keeps us in the game. If people decide to punch our lights out repeatedly with an army of elves or goblins, that's not really going to matter, because with Vigilance, we can keep our commander up, block 1 creature, and then keep our life total nice and healthy, basically no matter what happens. But we also need to have some auras to get in there and close out games, so we've got 7 auras for evasion as well, beginning with Griff's Boon. This will give our commander 1/0 and flying, with the ability to play the Griff Boon from the graveyard if we need to. On Sarah's Wings costs 1 mana because of our commander's affinity effect, and gives it 1/1 flying, Vigilance, and lifelink. So for us, it's just giving it flying, Vigilance, and 1/1. Unquestioned Authority will make it to where our commander has protection from creatures, which makes it unblockable to every creature on the board. It also draws as a card when it touches the board. Holy Mantle gives a creature 2/2 and protection from creatures. Skyblade's Boon gives our commander 1/1 and flying, with the ability to return the Skyblade's Boon to our hand. Angelic Gift draws us a card while also giving a creature flying. And Armored Ascension gives a creature 1/1 for every planes we control, which is absolutely massive, but it also gives flying. It can be difficult when playing a Voltron deck to make sure that the Voltron commander is able to stay on the board and survive. After all, they are our win condition, so it can be very scary if they are out. So to facilitate keeping our commander alive, we have 8 cards that will let us protect our commander from a variety of circumstances. Beginning with Guildscorn Ward, this gives our commander protection from multicolor. This is important for a lot of reasons. One, a lot of removal spells are multicolor, things like Putrefy, Atomize, things like Terminate. These are all things that players would like to use on us, and we are going to dodge with Guildscorn Ward. But more importantly, this gives our commander protection from other people's commanders, because it turns out most people play multicolored commanders in this format. So the likelihood that Guildscorn Ward is going to let you just get in there and dome somebody even if they have a commander blocker is very high. It also prevents us from losing our commander to any targeted effects from any people's commanders. Dog Umbra gives Umbra armor, meaning we can sacrifice it at any point to protect our commander. Hyena Umbra is doing the same thing along with Mammoth Umbra. And remember, the Mammoth Umbra isn't costing us 4 or 5 because of our commander. It's costing us 1. Redemption Arc allows us to give our creature indestructible and goad it. Goading is not the greatest thing for us to put on our own commander, but it doesn't really affect us all that much because we are a Voltron deck. We will be wanting to turn our commander sideways at people as often as possible. Thran Power Suit will give our commander Ward 2, and as an added bonus, it will give it 1/1 for every aura and equipment that's already attached to it. Benevolent Blessing allows us to choose a color at instant speed and protect our commander from that color once it drops on the board. Also, the Benevolent Blessing does not remove auras on our commander, so if we cast Benevolent Blessing and give our commander protection from white, it will not lose any of those auras at the minute that we cast Benevolent Blessing. Finally, we have Flicker Form, probably one of the strongest ways to keep our commander on the board. This allows us to exile our commander at instant speed along with all of its auras, and then at the beginning of the next step, we drop it onto the battlefield and then give it all of the auras that it originally had. This, of course, means that we will get all of the enter the battlefield triggers of all of these auras when we do so, while also giving us the ability to protect our commander anytime something bad might happen to it. This allows us to keep on the board and keep playing for as long as we need to. But we might end up losing a lot of our cards during the game. And that's fine because we have a 5-card recursion package to give us easy access to all of our cards as often as we need them. Beginning with Sun Titan, most of our auras are low to the ground auras, so Sun Titan allows us to get those out of our graveyard and attach them to our commander. Redemption Choir does the exact same thing, so long as we have a second creature on the board with it and the commander, so that we've got the Coven ability triggered. Spectral Steel enchants a creature and gives it 2/2, and we can exile Spectral Steel from the graveyard to get any aura or equipment from our graveyard to our hand. Rafine's Guidance gives a creature 1/1, and we have the ability to cast Rafine's Guidance from the graveyard by paying 3 mana instead of its mana cost. And finally, we have Unfinished Business, which lets us revive our commander or any other creature from the graveyard, and then add 2 aura or equipment to it automatically from the graveyard as well. This thing allows us to recover our commander on turns where it would otherwise cost too much, or allows us to get back something important like Sun Titan so that we can start putting pressure on people and not losing it for ourselves. It's also important to protect our commander from edict effects, so we've got 4 cards to do just that. Commanding Presence gives us the ability to have a 1/1 human soldier creature token on the board anytime our commander deals combat damage to somebody. It's also an aura, so we can get it discounted for our commander. Squire's Devotion gives a creature 1/1 and lifelink, and whenever it enters the battlefield, it gives us a 1/1 vampire creature as well. Ajani's Chosen says anytime an enchantment enters the battlefield, we get to make a 2/2 white cat, and then Archon of Sungrace will give us a 2/2 white Pegasus for the same thing. We are also going to be running the Heavenly Blade Master as a lieutenant for our commander should anything go wrong. It's got flying, double strike, so it already can get in there, and when it enters the battlefield, you can attach any of the auras and equipment we control automatically to it. Other creatures we control, however, get 1/1 for every aura and equipment attached to the Heavenly Blade Master. So once this pops on the board, our commander will still have plenty of power, and the Blade Master will be holding all of the auras, making it far harder for our opponents to choose who to actually hit with their removal spells. And the Blade Master, having double strike inherently, means it will be able to close out games for us super easily. That said, we still need to be able to draw cards, so this is going to be the smallest draw section I have ever made. Why is that? Because our commander is already drawing a card every time we drop an aura on a modified creature, and all it takes to modify a creature is to have an aura on it. So we've got 2 draw cards. That's it. That's all we have. And one of them could honestly be the commander of this deck if we so chose, but I think Purlier is a little better, honestly. SRAM, Senior Edificer, allows us to draw a card every time we play an aura, equipment, or vehicle, and Mesa Enchantress allows us to draw a card every time we cast an enchantment spell. If either of these is on the board with our commander, we basically are off to the races playing Aura Storm. It's just not even fair if one of these touches the board. At least when our commander is the only thing on the board, there is a chance of us whiffing and hitting lands. Once we've got both of these out, though, that idea is basically gone entirely. Now, since we are going to be probably the biggest threat on the board for the longest time, we do need to make sure we have a swath of removal spells to back up our commander. Not only do we need to be interacting with the board by protecting our commander retroactively from attempts at removal, we need lots of ways to remove our opponent's stuff. So we've got 12 dedicated cards that act as removal in their own right, and let's get into each of them and why they've been picked. Darksteel Mutation is wonderful for our deck because it in and of itself is an aura, and this is probably the single best card in the game for turning other people's commanders off. It's very hard to get a Darksteel Mutation off of a commander, when normally commanders can eat removal left and right because we can just pay more mana and get commanders out over and over again. Darksteel Mutation basically circumvents all of that and forces one of our opponents to play without the linchpin of their deck for multiple turns in a row. This is also one of the reasons why I advocate so heavily for lieutenants and being able to play extra cards that allow your deck to function when your commander's not on the board. I think that building decks that only ever function when the commander specifically is on the board is a way to fail, and you need to have backup plans and redundancies in your deck. Notice that even in Voltron decks, I try to include lieutenants and other alternative ways to progress our game plan. Following up with Generous Gift, a wonderful removal spell that gives us the option to blow up lands if we need to get rid of something like a Maze's End. Chain of Custody gives our commander another layer of ward protection while also exiling any non-land card an opponent has. Ossification allows us to exile any creature or planeswalker, and it enchants a basic land we control. It's super important to be able to have more auras and enchantments that do things like remove cards from the board, because they will trigger things like Mesa Enchantress and SRAM. Reprobation allows a creature to lose all of its abilities and turn it into a coward with power and toughness 0-1. This can stop other Voltron commanders or other linchpin commanders from functioning. Faith Unbroken enters the battlefield and exiles any creature an opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield, but importantly, it actually enchants our commander, meaning that it allows us to advance our own board state while also pushing our opponent's board states back. Thraben Charm is a super modular card, allowing us to blow up enchantments, deal damage equal to twice the creatures we control to any target creature. In our case, this is always going to be 2 or 4. And we can exile any number of target players' graveyards with this on top of that. Then we've got Meteor Golem. You all know why. Then we have Disenchant. This allows us to, at instant speed, blow up an artifact or enchantment, and Return to Dust can do it as well, but it can get rid of 2 if we time it correctly. Mortal Obsticency allows us to give a creature 1/1, and whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, we can sacrifice this at any point to get rid of any enchantment on the board. I realize I pronounced it really wrong. Mortal Obstinacy? Obstinacy. There we go. Then we have one of my favorite cards in all of Magic, Minimus Containment. This enchants any non-land permanent and straight up turns it into a treasure, making it basically useless for anybody except us. They can use it for mana, but to pay for what? The commander we casted it on? Anyway, we also have a slew of board wipes available to us, and every single one of these is asymmetric. Divine Reckoning, each player chooses a creature and then blows up every other creature that they control. We're just going to pick our commander and keep it on the board. Winds of Wrath blows up all creatures that aren't enchanted. Super easy for us. This also has the added benefit of allowing us to keep commanders on lockdown. So if we enchant a commander with something that will make it lose all of its abilities, and then we cast this board wipe, most people would think, oh, thank God, my commander is dead. I can now cast it instead of looking for a piece of removal I forgot to add in my deck. No. There is no such mercy with Winds of Wrath. With so much of our removal being based on enchanting a card and making it get stripped of everything that makes it important, the Winds of Wrath will see it as an enchanted permanent and will not destroy it, allowing us to continue our cartoon villainy. Then we have Single Combat. This means that each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control and sacrifices the rest. Then, players can't cast creatures or planeswalker spells until our next turn. That's right! This puts everybody with only one creature on the board, meaning we will always have the best creature, and then it locks people from establishing a board afterwards. Single Combat is one of the best ways to basically annihilate any strategy that our opponents think that they might have. But we still need to be able to afford these spells even without our commander's ability to discount the auras. So let's get into that. Now, while our commander has a built-in draw and built-in ramp, we still need to have a little bit of this, again, as a backup for when our commander is unplayable, and for being able to play some of our larger board wipes that don't actually benefit at all from our commander's ability. So, let's start with Charitable Levy. This is one of the 8 rant pieces, again, a small rant package that we are running. This stacks our opponents out for multiple turns, and anytime a player casts a non-creature spell, we put a collection counter on the levy. If there are 3 or more collection counters, we can sacrifice it to draw a card, and then search our library for a plains and drop it on the battlefield. Boy, I freaking love this card. This is one of the best ramp pieces to come out of recent sets for white, which is saying something in a color that has access to Smothering Tithe. Then we have Marble Diamond, super easy to use mana rock. Then we have Gold Mirror, a mana rock that allows us to dodge Edict effects. Arcane Signet, a 2-mana rock. Ornithopter of Paradise, another mana rock that allows us to dodge Edict effects by being a commander, or by being a creature rather, that can be on the board when our opponent casts, say, a Fleshbag Marauder. Then we have Mirror Convert, same thing. It's on the board. It can dodge an Accursed Marauder, Fleshbag Marauder, anything like that for us by taking the brunt for us. Then we have Honored Heirloom, a card that I adore because it gives us access to other people's graveyards as something that we want to remove. It also can give us a mana of any color, but really, that's not the most important part about it. You're already putting mana rocks in your deck anyway, so consider the fact that the Rainbow Rock can be used to turn off reanimation players' strategies forever, especially in a deck like this that heavily discounts all of its cards so much, so we'll always have mana available for something like Honored Heirloom. But I still need to show you the coup de grace. This is Defiler of Faith. Now, I want you to think about what this card says, for instance. Defiler of Faith says that as an additional cost to cast any white permanent spell, we may pay 2 life. Those spells then cost 1 white pip less if we paid life this way. We can only use this to substitute 1 pip from each card. If you play this card, you win the game! That's all that happens here. Let me explain. Our commander has lifelink built in. Our commander is already going to be fueling our life. Most of our enchantments cost either 1 or 1 with some extra mana that our commander is discounting. The limitation of our commander is supposed to be that we have to pay the 1 white mana because Affinity cannot discount colored pips. Defiler of Faith allows us to ignore those restrictions entirely. If Defiler of Faith is on the board, we can just pay 2 life to storm out every aura in our deck and get our commander to a nigh point of invincibility, and then kill 1 person. And then cast a board wipe that knocks everybody out of the game, basically, and locks them out of playing. So then we kill another person, leaving us with a 1v1 against whoever the weakest schmuck was at the table, basically allowing us to feel like Frieza from Dragon Ball. We've eliminated everything that mattered, and we will be left with only whoever was dumb enough to stay at the table after we did that, after the writing was on the wall. They didn't want to get up and go to a different commander game, so now we have to punish them by making their life points go down to -5 billion. Defiler of Faith allows us to storm through our deck so stupidly quickly. You have a Spectral Steel in your hand and you want to equip it to your commander? Okay, that'll cost 2 life. And that's it. You want to put Flicker 4 on your commander, followed by Hyena Umbra, Benevolent Blessing, Dog Umbra, Redemption Arc, Mammoth Umbra, and Guiltscorn Ward? Well, it's only going to cost you 2 life per. What's that? Your life is above 50 because your commander has lifelink and you've been getting life all game anyway. Well, boy howdy me, I guess you'll just freaking win! But we also need to have some lands to back up our commander, and our land section for this deck is very, very simple. We've only got 4 lands to talk about. 32 plains, as we are a mono white deck, a single Myriad Landscape, because of course we have a Myriad Landscape. Let's zoom up here so we can actually see it. The Myriad Landscape allows us to ramp a little bit in our time of need. Pit of Offerings allows us to exile cards from graveyards as a utility land, and Rogue's Passage gives us a way for our commander to circumvent any type of blocker whatsoever. So we get to play a super simplified draw package and rant package and land package because our commander is just quite frankly doing enough for us. But what would you do if you had a little bit more money and you wanted to invest a smidge into this deck? Let's talk about that. This was kind of a hard deck to pick upgrades for because so many of the cards that we wanted did fit within the deck's budget, but a lot of the things that you could add in here would definitely spice the deck up quite a lot. So let's begin with Ash's Favor. This is another way to give Flying and Vigilance to our commander. Sun Bond will give our commander 1/1 for every single time we gain life, which is kind of insane. We hit somebody once for like 10 or 11, and suddenly our commander is pushing lethal on anybody. Brilliant Restoration's an easy way to get all of our auras back on our commander for an easy game win. Hourglass of the Lost gives us a little bit of extra recursion along with a new mana rock. Umbra Mystic allows us more layers of protection on our commander by giving Umbra armor to all of our enchantments. Indestructibility allows us to add Indestructible to our ways of protecting our commander. Sigil of the Empty Throne gives us an alternate win con in 4/4 Angels that also give us Edict Protection. Light Paws Emperor's Voice. This card, this stupid card, could have just been the commander of the deck, and I actively chose not to do that because I don't want to be a bad person. This adds an infinite Omni Tutor to the deck. Anyway, moving on. Witch's Enchanter is a great MDFC. On the back side, it's a land, and it can blow up artifacts or enchantments. Just swap planes out for it. Swiftfoot Boots adds hexproof to our ways of protecting our commander. Stroke of Midnight gives us a pseudo extra copy of Generous Gift. Retether is another way to throw all of our auras back on our commander. Timely Ward is another way to get Indestructible on the commander. Angelic Destiny is a recurable way at very cheap, given our commander's ability to give our commander flying as well as giving it first strike. Core Spirit Dancer is another way to supplement the draw package of the deck, while also giving itself 2/2 for every aura on it, so it can just hold all of our enchantments on its own. Idolized is another big aura that gets tons and tons and tons of power for all the other auras on our battlefield. Helm of the Gods is doing the same thing. Spirit Mantle is another way to get protection from creatures, but at $2.50, it's way out of our price range. Guardian of Faith adds yet another layer for protection to our commander, letting it phase out. Eldrazi Conscription gives us another win con by just dropping this on our commander and dunking on them with 10/10 Trample and Annihilator 2. Hall of Heliod's Generosity lets us get enchantments from our graveyard back on top of our deck for recursion. Songbird's Blessing allows us to dig into our deck to get more auras as we need. Spectral Ward gives us another way to give protection from all colors, while also not stripping our commander of auras. Shielded by Faith is yet another way to get Indestructible. Ondu Spirit Dancer allows us to copy all of our auras as they enter the battlefield. Clever Concealment and Teferi's Protection are two other ways to phase out our commander so that we can do things like dodge board wipes and important spot removal. And with that, that's a ton of upgrades you can choose. Just any card that you don't like, just pick one of the upgrades and swap them out for it, and that is perfectly fine. If there's any card you don't like in the deck build, then obviously that's something you can let me know in the comment section below or remove on your own time. And also, just the entire point of the upgrade section is to give y'all a bunch of flavor options you can choose to upgrade the deck, with no budget restrictions required for those of you who are privileged enough to have such means. That said, let's get into the conclusion. In conclusion, Pearl Ear is a super powerful commander, and it's cool that we have more Fox commanders in general, but I think that we need to start exploring some different avenues for Wizards of the Coast when it comes to Fox commanders. Right now, we've got 2 Voltron enchantment-based Fox commanders. Maybe we could use some more, but Pearl Ear is still a super fun and interesting pick. Giving us the ability to effectively storm off with auras is kind of nutty, and I really like it. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and let me know if there's anything I can do to improve these videos for you. As always, y'all, thank you for watching, and insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability that Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here. They would be Red Joker, Blitzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, Sagitt, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.